All right. Oh, we are live. We are live. We are back. And Dan is back in his secret. I've never seen this room, Dan. Like, usually I see you, you're on the couch. Do you got a little special area now or what?
No, it's just upstairs. It's just
Okay.
just on the second floor now.
All right. All right. You had a watch party today, right? Was that at the gym or at your house? What was going on with that?
Just the gym like blew up a little projector at the gym and had some of the people down, some of the people from CKB, some of the people from my gym, Combat Academy. So it's just good. Yeah, it's good to be around like pretty much all the people in like our little community because they've all in one way or another had their hand in helping the team. So it's just good to watch the fights with all of those people that are just a little bit more invested in it, I guess.
Are you one of those fighters that get like really, really like antsy and like what is it? Do you feel like anxiety when your teammates are fighting when you're in that environment, like those watch parties?
I'm antsy all day. I'm antsy all day. I've been up since I've been up since about 6:30 in the morning. Running backwards and forwards. But it's just yeah. You just like use those nerves and that adrenaline. I think it's just different because you have like absolutely no control of the situation. You can be like a little bit calmer if you're like if I'm in the corner or something like that, you're like a little bit calmer because you even in the corner you have like some kind of aspect to influence the fight or something
Mhm.
like that. When I'm fighting, I don't get nervous because you're the one that's in the driver's seat, right? Like you're the one that controlling the whole environment. So that changes a little bit. It's only when you're in a on the other side of the world on your couch or watching it. You have absolutely no control. So that's when it's out of your hands and you're marching backwards and forwards up the living room or in the lounge, and that I find hard. That is harder over everything else.
In from my like short, like career of training with fighters, when they fight, I do feel something, what I mean? Because I did, train with them and I'm, like I've seen them go through what they need to go through during camp. And I do feel something, man. It's hard to say what the feeling is, but if they win, they lose, I have some kind of emotional attachment to it, the fight, or
Mm,
actually to the
mm.
fighter. Is am I feeling the right things, Dan?
Oh, 100 man. It's like as much as you put in, like it's why like gambling on a fight makes it more exciting, right? Like
Mhm.
you're just more invested than someone that hasn't put a wager on the fight. It's the same as that. Like that's it when you fight. Like you're accountable. Like when you're in like a close knit team, like we are at City Kickboxing. Like it's why you have um, coaches that you're that tied into. It's because now you're like accountable to each other.
Mhm.
It's like I'm accountable to my coaches. I'm accountable to my teammates. So it's like when it's like that level of accountability, it's like, will you help the guy prepare for that fight? Like you had a hand in getting him ready for that fight. Like of course you're going to be more accountable than your average Joe sitting on the couch. That's when it kind of sparks those nerves up.
All right, man. Let's start at the top of the card, right? The main event. Israel Adesanya goes in there
Mm.
and puts on a great performance. I thought that he showed a lot of um I think his fight IQ, man. I think that's what your team is known for. You know what I mean?
Mm.
With the game planning and especially with Volk fighting alongside you guys as well. I thought Israel took nearly no damage and won that fight pretty flawlessly. What did you think of what transpired?
Yeah, like I feel like he was in the driver's seat of that fight, and it reflected in the scorecards. I think it's two judges gave Kennedy a 1 round, one judge gave him no rounds. Just is he out? Was getting the best of him on the outside, and it like I thought Cannonier would be more aggressive. You know what I mean? Like I thought Cannonier he's coming to this fight. He's going, well, this is my shot. This is my chance to be the champion. Like, he would take a little more risks, and he kind of didn't. I'm not saying he was like happy to sit on the outside and like coast to like a decision loss, but it's like he was smart enough to not take those risks, because it's like when you take those big risks against Israel or Volk, that's when it makes you more susceptible to being caught on the backside of that. So I felt like beautiful display from Israel, but it's like the big finish or anything like that just comes down. That comes when the opponent in there starts taking some risks and starts knowing he's down on the scorecards and starts going for it and pulling the trigger. But yeah, he just never, he was kind of just happy to take that L. You know, he didn't really take those big risks to get himself kind of taken out of the contest.
Do you think he was kind of, you know, I believe, or you know, this could be said that Izzy is at this, you know, level of, you know, stardom on top of being a great fighter, but that stardom is there. He could handle, or he's been through so many high pressure situations and showing up and performing really well. Cannonier, do you think the big lights might have got to him? You know what I mean? A little bit, because like you said, I didn't think we saw the best Cannonier. Like, he didn't take risks. You have to, like, once you get into that 4th and 5th round, right? You got to be able to, you got to say like, hey, I got to throw everything out the window and try to kill this dude.
Yeah, that's easy to say, hard to do. You know what I mean? Like, it's still, no matter how bad life is going, like, life can always get worse, brother. Like, no matter what, no matter how bad it's going, it can always get worse. It's like, you're out there, you can't reach him. You start like thinking, man, so what? How? Like, you're trying to figure it out for those 3 rounds, and then you realize you're 3 rounds down. You still haven't been able to close that distance or get any kind of offense going. It's like, you know, right? You know, every time you try to press in, you get caught with a good shot. It's like, life can always get worse than losing a 5-round decision. You know what I mean? Like, life can be, you get the biggest fight of your life and you wake up staring at those lights. Like, it can always get worse. So it's easy to say, yeah, take some risks, but it's like, against Israel, like, even the risks are hard to take. Even the risks, you're like, there's no way I'm gonna pull this off. You know what I mean? Like, and going all in on a 9-1 is hard to do. You know what I mean? We can all do it right now with our bank account. We can put it on the 9-1 underdog, but it's probably not the right thing to do with your life savings. You know what I mean? Like, it can always, you might be not have that much money in the bank now, but you can always be broke. You know what I mean? Like, life can always get worse, and I feel like that's the position Cannonier was in. So it's like, he did well with what he had, but yeah, taking those big risks, easy to say, hard to perform.
Exactly, man. I'm the king of you know, saying those types of things. You know, easy things to say, but
we all are. You know, we all are. You're sitting back watching. Oh, he should. It's like, yeah, again, easy to say, very hard to execute.
What did you see in the fight with what Israel was doing? You know, with the striking, and something that, like, a common folks, you know, the regular people of the world didn't see, that you might have caught during the fight?
Oh, that's like that's the system, right? Like, that's the secret sauce that these guys haven't been able to figure out, right? It's the exact same thing that I was watching in the Alex Volkanovski fight. I feel like it wasn't till, like, I definitely felt like Israel was controlling that fight, and it wasn't till like halfway through the 3rd round when I kind of stopped watching it. I was like, nah, this one's done. You know, like, that's when I started, you know, making sure the kids are all right and going to the bathroom and things like that. Because at that stage of the fight, I was like, this one is under control. Alex versus Max was like a little bit different. That was like that 1st round. I was like, yeah, this is not. If this was like Max's plan coming into this, which was like try to get under the skin and try to pressure him a little bit more, like, as I was saying, like leading into that fight, it's like the more you push the case against Alex, like the harder you're gonna make it for yourself. You know what I mean? Like that's not how you get the job done against these guys, is by upping the ante and taking more risks. It's like that's just not how. But for me, like watching the fight, asking like, what did I see that your average Joe doesn't see? It's like a system that I've been studying for a very long time, being executed at the highest level of the sport. It's something that we watch every single day. It's something that we study and practice every single day, being executed phenomenally at a higher level. It's as easy as that. It's all these people need to do is get down to city kickboxing and train your ass off for 10 years, and maybe you'll understand it.
There's probably coaches somewhere, in a basement, or just regular folks that break down fights, looking to crack the code, basically, right, of city kickboxing. That's what they're looking at. Do you guys have that? Like, do you have that in your team? You know what I mean? Like, you have that feeling of like people are trying to crack the code. So it's like every fight you guys have to evolve just so they're not catching up, so to say.
Yes, the system was obviously like always getting improved and always getting worked on, but that's like the beauty about the system. It's not, we're not just doing like one thing better than other people are doing it. You know what I mean? Like it's not as simple as that. If you want me to explain it, I can't explain it. I would have to go through all the fundamentals of combat sports and explain them to you and be like, just be excellent at all of these fundamental aspects and be able to execute. Like it's not easily explained. That's why it's not easily understood. That's why that these two guys have been phenomenal champions and looked outstanding in their championship performances. It's like, obviously it's something that I like. The only reason that they say, oh, why can't you execute it yourself? It's like it's on me. Like I let myself down. Obviously I can understand and follow that system and execute it quite well, and I will going forward. My way is done. I'm I'm all in on that way, but for me, it's the only reasons that I haven't executed it is because I let I like a good fist fight. Like when it comes down to it, I like getting out there, and I like the risky aspect of the sport, which has led to me being in the position that I'm in, and these guys being multiple time world champions. Is because they can have a unique control of their emotions. They have a unique control of like their patience and things like that. Is in those kind of situations where I'll let like emotional aspects get the better of me because I just enjoy it. I enjoy giving a shot and taking a shot, whereas these guys have overrid those physical emotions, and they can stay very composed and patient in very critical situations.
What do you think of the whole, Alex Pejera, the UFC sitting him down cage side during the main event?
Good, brother. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. That's what your post-fight speech is for. As the GOAT Chael Sonnen says, your post-fight speech is for setting up your next fight. And that's exactly, like, he didn't even have to do that. The UFC did it to him. The UFC put it on a platter, held it up high to him, and offered it to him, which is perfect. That like, obviously, his successes over Israel and kickboxing sets up that fight. Like that fight sells itself, and the UFC have done a phenomenal job of getting Alex Pejera to the position in that short space of time, which is perfect because, as everyone knows, the obviously the amount of fights you have in the UFC is like where the real risk is. It's like if you just work your way up incrementally in the UFC, like a contender series and then debut, like you have 10 fights in the UFC. That's obviously like 10 rolls of the dice. So they've managed to get Alex there, and is it 4 fights in the UFC?
3 fights, I think. Yeah,
3
3.
fights in the UFC.
Yeah.
Perfect. Of course, like 3 coin flips as opposed to 12 coin flips. Of course, like the guy taking 3 risks versus the guy taking 12 risks to get to that same position is going to be able to sell the fight better. So I think the UFC did a phenomenal job of setting that fight up, and it's a gift wrap. They laid him up with the next fight against like obviously a guy that was competitive with Israel in kickboxing, but it's like obviously you go back and everyone will say like you go back and you actually watch those fights. It's like I believe Israel won the first one, and the decision was a bit shady, and then that was the second fight where he got caught was like a fight that Israel was handling quite comfortably. If you go back and watch that fight, like Israel was outclassing Alex in that fight and pressured a little bit too much and got caught. But Israel obviously knows the mistake that he made. He had to dwell on that, adjust on it. And you can see like no one's been able to do that since to Israel. The only way Israel's been beaten has been held down by a guy like Jan, who's like a much bigger guy and executed a game plan very well. It's like Alex really doesn't have that skills to implement them. Will it be? I will definitely. That fight is an exciting fight. You know what I mean? Like for my teammate, for Israel, like that fight is a very exciting fight for me as a teammate. Like to watch, like it's very cool. Like very rarely do you get to get something like that back. So it's like Israel under the bright lights, like best Alex. It's like that's that done, right? Like that's the only thing that people can bring up is they bring up, oh, look at this knockout. This is when Alex knocked Israel out. Like that's the only thing people can bring out. It's like he does that defending his title and wipes the floor with him. It's like that closes that book on that chapter forever, which is probably going to be quite like fulfilling to Israel.
Yeah, I'm not really like totally confused by the UFC pushing Alex because like everybody knows that he beat Israel twice, right? But the difference between like deserving a title shot and earning a title shot, I don't think it really matters in this case. It almost seems like he had earned the title shot before he even entered the UFC. He just needed a couple of wins under the banner just to show everybody that, hey, I'm pretty good with the 4-ounce gloves on. I can compete with the highest level.
It was really like this next title shot really comes down to one man and one man only, and that's Sean Strickland. That's Strickland taking that fight against Alex Pereira, which he really didn't have to. What is he ranked like number 4 in the world, number 5 in the world? Like he's top 5 in the world, and to take on a completely unranked guy, like that's what got Alex this title fight. So at the end of the day, we all have to tip our hats to Sean Strickland, who really opened up the door for this to become a possibility.
Yeah, he definitely did, and I'm anticipating the fight. You know, it seems like that. You know, Israel's been champ for a while. He does what he needs to be done. You know, he promotes himself well. That's the only confusing. That's the only part that when this fight gets actually booked and they start to go back and forth. Izzy's going to probably he's probably going to carry almost all of the weight to promote this fight. All they're going to use for Alex is the highlights, right? That's about it. I wish like Alex was able to go back and forth, and then it would be even a bigger fight, to be honest with you, because the press conferences will be a little bit more, spicier, so to say. But I think Izzy's going to probably carry the brunt of the promotion. But I think the UFC does like that, though.
Oh, but that's it. Like, that's an interesting part. I feel like it would be more entertaining for the hardcores if it was Strickland, just because of the back and forth, that kind of thing. But like, hate to break it to the hardcore fans, like you don't sell pay-per-views. Like you really don't. You're gonna watch it regardless. You know what I mean? Like the hardcore fans are gonna watch it whether there's a mute fighting the champion. Like you're just gonna sit down and you're gonna watch every single pay-per-view. We don't have to sell the pay-per-view to you. It's like you have to sell it to your average Joe. You have to sell it to your sports fan. It's like Israel's made himself one of the biggest names in the sport, one of the most recognizable figures in the sport. So now it's like it's an easy promotion to your average Joe who's like, well, this guy knocked him out before, so now who else is gonna do it again? It's like it's an easy sell to like your average Joe. Like it's an easy intrigue to your average Joe who might be like, oh, I'm not sure I'm gonna watch this event. It's like, oh yeah, I know this Israel Adesanya. He's pretty. Oh, this guy. Oh man, he might lose this one. Like it adds intrigue to your average Joe. And at the end of the day, that's the person that you're trying to sell a pay-per-view to.
Yeah, you're right, man. It doesn't really matter what we think. If we're the ones that are like really like into it, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. You're already sold. It's like
Yeah.
whether you're sold after 2 seconds or whether it takes you a week, like you've already bought the pay-per-view. You're already sold. Like it's just yeah, of course it'd be like far more entertaining to have Strickland there arguing about all the shitty that kind of argues with Israel about. That would be epic. But it's like I feel like this fight has just like the intrigue level on both of those fights is probably leans towards the Alex Pereira fight adds more intrigue.
All right, so before we get to the Alex Pereira fight, let's talk about Volkanovski and his man. That fight, the first fight I thought Alex won. The second fight, it was really close. If it would have went in Max's favor, I wouldn't be fighting with anybody about it. But this third fight, he shut the door. Like he shut the door, pulled out the shotgun, blasted some holes in the door, and then just walked off, man. He looked probably the best he's ever looked. What do you think?
Yeah, phenomenal fight. And that's just like as I was explaining it leading into it, it's like the first fight, Alex has obviously been reading Volk's obviously been reading Max as the champion for a very long time, and then he came in with a game plan. Then obviously Max get to go away and make his adjustments and come back. But then he obviously showed the adjustments that he was going to make, and it was Alex's turn to make the adjustments, and which he did, which is he kind of did more of the same, but at a higher volume. I feel like that real difference in the fights, where it's like Alex really showed his difference, was Max tried to just up the ante. Max tried to just bring more pressure to Alex and get in his face a little bit more, and that, as I was saying, like the more you get in Alex's face, like the more that's going to lead to a downfall, which is exactly what happened. Like Max tried to pressure more, which you could see from the opening round, and it backfired. Like Alex was saying it leading in, he's like, you're trying to play mind games, but it's backfiring. Like you're just geeing me up. Like you're just giving me more energy to go into the fight. It's the same thing with when he was actually out there and he tried to pressure Alex a little more and get in his face. It just made the punches harder, and it was just showed dividends on Max's face, really. And that's why we saw the best performance of Volk's career come down to the increase in pressure that Max put on him.
How about that cut on his eye? That just became bigger and bigger. It was deep as hell too, because the cut man was like sticking the Q-tip, the thick Q-tips, but it was like inside the motherfucker. Like that was.
Q-tip,
I'm surprised.
Q-tip disappeared. Yeah, the Q-tip disappeared. That was that was wild. That's the wild part about it.
Yeah, and then earlier in the night there was a no contest because of an eye poke. I'm surprised the doctor didn't even stop the fight with that cut, man, because that cut was like right above the eye and it was fucking huge. Like. I don't want the fight to be stopped, but I was surprised like the doctor didn't come in there and do his little tests and shit.
Yeah, just had just the cut man that comes out of the cut man, like doing an incredible job of like limiting the bleeding, because obviously that position of that cut right over the eye, like that is gonna leak purely into the eye, like that's gonna drip down in the eye, which it did. Like to be fair, I was watching it and the blood was like closing Max's left eye as he's trying to Volk, like you need that left eye for your jab and to get your timing down. And when he was pressuring in, he just wasn't able to see the right hand of Alex coming at him. What hand did I saw that Alex broke a hand, or Alex was saying that actually broke a hand in the first round. So he fought the most incredible fight of his career with one of his main weapons being broken for a majority of the fight. Yeah, his left hand.
Yes. Oh, the left hand. Yeah, man. That the like, where do you go from here? If you're Max Holloway, you've lost to the same guy 3 times in 3 championship fights. Do you hang around and fight more featherweights until maybe Volk leaves the division or loses the belt, or do you go up to lightweight and fight a lightweight? What's if you were in that position, right? What would you likely do?
I'd say he's probably gonna stick around at featherweight. Like it's obvious that Max and Volk of like a different level than the rest of the featherweights. It's like you still have to like wait and see. Obviously, if Alex came out and said like I'll run both divisions, like I'll chop it, which is a tall ask. You know what I mean? And they you can see that like with Conor, like when he moved up, they were trying to strip him of 2 titles, because it's hard enough for a champion to prepare for maybe 2, 3, 5-round fights a year. What are you going to do? 6 5-round fights? Like it's just hard. Like it's a hard ask to be able to manage 2 divisions chopping and changing. So I don't see Max offer that performance like there being like that big of a call for him to move up to lightweight. But Alex, on the other hand, is the one that's calling for himself to move up to lightweight. It's like pretty much he's gone through the division. He's obviously beaten the next best guy 3 times. There's no one really like, obviously the Emmett fight's there, but it's like, like it wasn't like he beat Cater, but did he really beat Cater? Like it wasn't like that impressive of a performance. Like I feel like there's no one that's left in that division like standing there like, what about me? Like I've got the next title shot. It's like Volk can do Emma, or Volk can move up to like it's in Volk's hands. And obviously Volk moves up, then Max is going to have more success down there at featherweight and potentially work his way back to the belt. But a lot of what Max does comes down to what Alex does.
Yeah, so if Alex does stay at featherweight for his next fight, I believe Emmett should get the next title shot. He's on a 5-fight winning streak. He's beaten some of the top guys. I think he's earned it. I think that should be the next fight if he stays. But if he goes to lightweight, they got to give him the Emir title shot, right? Like there's no other option.
Yeah, pretty much.
And there's no champion too, which is crazy right now. There's no champion. So it kind of opens the door. It's like Alex is in a better position.
Everyone knows.
I know everybody knows. But
Charlie Oliver has got the belt.
He does got a belt at home, right? And I think it opens the door for Alex. I think he's in a better position because the title is vacant. So they could be like, all right, let's make a title fight. Unanimous, or not unanimous, but undisputed title fight. Put Alex in there against whoever the hell they want. You know what I mean? Because it seems like Oliveira's going back and forth with the UFC to see like what's his next fight, and money, stuff like that is all part of it. So we'll see, man. Alex seems like he's ready to fight in the next 6 months, 4 months, 3 months. He just wants to turn it back real quick. So I'm gonna make a prediction and say Alex does fight for the belt this year at lightweight against someone. I don't know exactly who it would be, but it's against someone. But it's got to be, the right fight.
It's a good call. I know the UFC is holding out for Magachev Oliveira. I've said this time and time again.
I know.
Everything else is just a mystery. So if they do want, Oliveira to fight before then and rush through a featherweight, lightweight unification before that fight comes up, then I feel like it's a strong possibility. But yeah, it's gonna just come down to a lot of stuff behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff
Exactly.
that we're not privy to as the fans, like sitting there and watching. The negotiating table is obviously, our perspective of it is very different from like the reality of the situation. You know, there's a reason they stripped Charles for his title. You know, obviously he's pushing for more money and holding out for more money, and you know these kind of things happen.
Exactly. We don't know what the hell is going on in those boardrooms between, managers and UFC or whatever the hell, matchmakers, the lawyers, all of that stuff. It's unique. This is just something that I thought of right now. And, if Max does go up to lightweight, right? If he does decide, okay, I'm going to go fight at lightweight, featherweight, maybe I'll return. Let's go to lightweight, see if I could go chase after that title. I guess main event, like, are you wanting a main event when you return, Dan? Is that something that you're pursuing, or do you feel like, main events don't matter? It's just, when I fight, I fight.
Either.
Mm.
Like, I've never, like really chased a main event. They're just something that, there's something that kind of comes to you. It's like with the last one with the Arman fight in that main event, like another main event fell out, and then that one got promoted to the main event. So yeah, I'm not sure that would be booked as a main event, but it just comes down to like a lot of timing issues, really. Like
Mm.
that's the main thing. What's your thing? Are you saying me and Max in a main event? Is that what you're trying to get at?
I'm thinking like that's a great fight at lightweight. You know what I mean?
I
It's a
don't think
great
that's
fight.
something. Yeah, like it's not something that Max has really come out and called for as to moving up a division. Like that's not something I would pursue, because that's not something that like Max has even shown intrigue at. He obviously showed that with the Dustin Poirier fight, and then that didn't go his way, and then he's obviously said that, oh yeah, all right, I'm going to stay down at featherweight. So yeah, that's entirely up to him, and that's like he would be the one that if that were to happen, is the one that would need to kind of show some kind of inkling that he's moving in that direction.
You know better than anyone, right? That this game tomorrow, you could think one thing, and then the next day, you could think a whole nother thing, right? It's just everything changes so fast. So we'll see, where Max is at. But, Max has options. Even though he just lost the title fight, he still has a lot of options, which is great for a fighter. Let's go to Alex Pejera and his pretty dominant, finish over Sean Strickland. You know what I mean? I thought Sean Strickland was going to win the fight. I felt like Sean Strickland was going to pressure more, but Pereira's left hook, man, it just seems like if it lands, that will put you to sleep. You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah, he
what you
was
think.
he was he was setting it up with his jab. It was obviously Sean Strickland likes to lean back a lot, use that shoulder roll, and then use his right hand to parry. He was just Pereira, when they were a little bit closer and had found his range, was able to draw out that parry of Sean Strickland away from his chin, away from his face, and connect with the left hook. Pretty similar to the same setup that Carlos Ulberg hit his opponent with last weekend. So it's a pretty similar technique. Like if you go back and watch the punches, I feel like Carlos's was a little bit longer. Alex's was just in a little bit closer. Yeah, just a bad approach from Sean. Like that's me as well. Like I felt like Sean could have won that fight, and then obviously like at the start of his UFC career, he was quite like a savvy grappler and looked for the takedowns and top control positions, and that was kind of something that he needed to pull out in this fight, and he just didn't. Like he's just too confident on his feet, and he has quite a lot of success in the gym, and he compared, like as he was saying, like a lot of the glory kickboxers which he trained with in the gym to Alex Pereira. And it's like Alex is the champ, like there's glory kickboxers, and then there's glory kickboxers. Like there's very different stages of that. And you can see that just because like the depth of like American kickboxing compared with like the depth of like Muay Thai in Thailand, or the depth of these Dutch kickboxers in the Netherlands, like, or the Europeans. If you're comparing like the European circuit or the Oceanic circuit to the circuit that's run in America, it's like there's glory kickboxers and there's glory kickboxers. This is like the same thing as saying there's black belts, right? There's jiu-jitsu black belts, and then there's jiu-jitsu black belts. Like it's like once you read a certain level, it's very hard to gauge like just the best in the world from like just the best of their region. You know what I mean? And obviously, Sean got a little drunk on the Kool-Aid there, and thought that the guys that he was training with were of the same level of Alex, which they obviously were not. And he just approached it wrong. He should have been more aggressive with the takedown, aggressive with the clinch, and to really test out Alex's grappling ability, which no one has been able to do until this point in the UFC.
Yeah, I think that was an error in strategy or execution. You know what I mean? Like you said, I was wishing that he would mix it up a lot more with the wrestling, with the clinch, because he's actually pretty good and pretty good in those positions. Not that bad, and but it didn't happen, man. He, like you said, he got he was confident that he'd go in there and strike with Pejera, and that's what happens, right? With Alex. So Alex, man, this Alex guy, he's got the silver platter, the silver bowls, the gold teeth. He's got everything. They're just giving it to him. Like, here you go. Like the UFC is like, here you go. You don't even have to speak English. You just be there. You're just there. Come to the fight. That's all we need you to do. And, you know, I'm happy for him because, you know, he's in that lucky position to take, you know, to benefit off of that.
Extremely. Well, I feel like they had to rush him because they had to rush him, right? Mm-hmm. Like, besides Alex, like who else is there in the division? You know what I mean? Like they had to create a contender with the only question that's left about Israel floating around in the world, which is like, oh, this guy beat him in kickboxing. Like, what do you reckon will happen in MMA? Do you think it'll, like, that's the only question that's left out there for Israel at this weight class? You know what I mean? Alex Pereira's not there. I feel like Israel loses interest in the division and starts chasing double champ status again. Like, that's the only reason why he hasn't called for it, is because there's another contender in his own division. It's like you have to clear your own division, which he's cleared to lose. He's doubled back, but now he's got a new contender. He'll take care of him, and then you look after this fight. I feel like we're gonna hear him calling for the move up again to weight class and the jump up in division. And it'll be pretty hard to deny him, and after what he's done in his own division.
Yeah, it would definitely be 100%. You know, hard to deny him if he does that. When you look at the middleweight division, you know, just the rampage he's gone through. Number one guy is Robert Whittaker. He beat him twice. Cannonier, he just beat him. He's number two. Vettori, he's beat him twice. He's number three. Strickland, he lost. Brunson beat him. Costa beat him. And then the rest of the division, there's fighters left, you know what I mean? But they're still clawing and trying to get up there so they could fight Izzy. I think, like you said, it's a great position. It's great timing for the division as well, that Alex is here to take that spot and let the other fighters shake up the division and create a new contender for the, you know, it's up to them, right? It's up to them to say, Alex, after Alex, I'm next. I'm going to be the one. Like, someone has to make themselves known, and it's hard to say who will. You know, it's hard to say. It's hard.
Really hard.
Yeah, it is. It's difficult to say, man. But I'm enjoying it, man. I enjoyed, you know, both their performances. Like learning striking and then watching like Alex and Izzy perform. You kind of, I watch it. I'm like, damn, like I'm learning a little bit of what they're doing. You know what I mean? I can see it now. Like I didn't see it before, but I can see it now. A little bit of this and that. you know, I'm not saying like I'm this analyst or something like that, but you know what I mean? I could see it, and it's masterful. It's beautiful to watch. And if it's 5 rounds, man, it's great for actually the champions going 5 rounds. It's actually great for them, to be honest with you, because they're just loading up experience on top of experience on top of experience. That's just going to help in defending the title later on, right? I love it, man. I love it. Alex, I can't wait for that fight, man. That fight's going to probably happen real soon. You know, what do you think? Where do you think they're gonna? Do you think you're gonna go? They're gonna go back to Australia? Well, I think we talked about this last time, but man, you got to take advantage of that, right?
Yeah, I think they will. Like things are opening up. Pretty much like back down here. I think Australia will definitely happen before New Zealand. But yeah, the UFC is looking at it. But as the UFC says, like once a place opens up with absolutely no restrictions, they say they're going to be the first ones in there. It's like I feel like for promoters, especially putting on big events down here in this region in New Zealand and Australia, like there's still a few loopholes that they got to jump through and some hurdles that they have to get by, and the UFC is just not willing to kind of jump into or fall into that game. You know, they just want it no restrictions, no hesitations, and then they'll pull the trigger and put on a show. So potentially at the end of this year, or if not, I would say early 2023, that we'll start seeing some shows back down here.
From the
unless
reaction,
unless monkeypox kicks off, and then we're all fucked.
Monkeypox and cockroach pox. I don't even know what the hell's going on, man.
It's coming next. It's coming. It's coming.
The next wave. With Sean Strickland, from the reaction, online and even some people, I was at the cafe watching the fights with people, just not people I know, but just a bunch of people, and a lot of people were kind of happy that Sean Strickland got knocked out, man. It's like he's created something for himself right here, right? Like there are people really hate him and want to see him get fucked up, and I think he needs to take advantage of that, right?
Yeah, like that's like the benefit of it. That's like the beauty of it. Like it's not just something he said to sell a fight. Like it's genuinely like his own personality. So it's not like he's gonna change. He's gonna come back. He's gonna say the exact same shit, and it's like there's not much you can do about it. Like it's genuinely the guy's personality. I feel like he's created like quite a strong fan base that people just appreciate his honesty, even if they don't appreciate like the actual things he's saying. Like they appreciate him just being genuine and sticking to who he really is. So I feel like he'll bounce back. Like he definitely knows like the risk that he took. Like he can definitely get himself back into like a similar position. I just feel like big risk, big reward. He getting past that fight, he would have walked himself into a title shot, but it didn't go his way. It's like I feel like he'll pick himself back up and be back in there in no time.
Yeah, he took the risk, man, and the reward would have been a title shot. So you can't hate him for that. I think any fighter would have took that fight if they were saying, "Hey, you win this one, you're gonna fight for the title next." You jump on it, immediately. The fight of the night: Byron Barbarina versus Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler looked really good, I thought, throughout the first and second round until he got finished. There's that whole thing. You looked really good until you got finished, right? But Robbie did look really good. I'm not gonna lie.
He did. He looked really good, like catching the punches well. Like he was the one pressing the action and pressing the fight. And as Barbarina said, like he was the one. Like he had good timing. He hit hard. He had good. He was setting things up really well. There was nothing there that had me saying like maybe Robbie should look at some time. Like Robbie looked phenomenal. He looked good. He just got caught by another fighter that's fighting at the top echelon in the world, and they put on one hell of a fight. Like to me, like that was damn near close to fight of the night. That was an absolute war. I had me sitting on the edge of my seat and yelling and screaming because of a huge Robbie Lawler fan. But I'm sure he'll be back regardless of that performance. I feel like it was a good performance. It was just one in which he got clipped.
What about those elbows from the clinch, by Barbarina? Those were very effective, man. They were landing like I think like across like the eye, the side of the head, because you saw some swelling on that. You know what I mean, from the elbows. How effective are elbows in the clinch?
Just the damage which they result in. It's like the clinch, like when Robbie comes in and he's dipping his head and he's throwing the big punches like over the top. It's like that's the only real answer. But speaking from experience and like a fight like with elbows are not like a punch. Like they don't feel the same. Like you're in tight. You're like throwing big shots, like trying to get out of there, a guy out of there, and he just like slices like an elbow forward. It's just like that. Like it's just you feel like something glanced off your eye or something like that. You're throwing punches. Next thing you've got blood kind of leaking out of there. So it's like elbows aren't something that really hurts or knocks you back like a big punch. It doesn't have that kind of same effect. But it's like just the physical damage, and then obviously like the fans sitting back home, like if one guy starts leaking with blood, like they go, oh, well, the other guy must be winning if he's the one that's covered in blood and he's got the crimson mask on. It's yeah. So I would say they have a big effect on like the damage, and they have a great ability to shut down someone that's really trying to open up and get things going. Just touching him in there with an elbow like reminds him when he's letting go of those punches, like maybe you should be a little more careful than you're being.
Yeah, that was a crazy fight, Brian. I talked to him before this fight, and he's the type of guy. It's like, I want a war. That's what I want. I want a war, and then I want to beat your ass during the war. You know what I mean? Like that's what he wants. If I could finish you, I could finish you in a war. That's the mentality he has, man. I think he came in, and in his last two fights, he's beaten Robbie Lawler and Matt Brown. You know what I mean? Two guys that are like legends of the welterweight division. And now 100%. He's creating his own little momentum. I like it, man, because he's been around forever. I think he was the first one to beat Sage Northcutt. Yeah, he was. He was the first one to beat, like he derailed that hype train. Brian Barber, that was years ago. But yeah, I hope they give him another big fight, Brian. He deserves it, man. He deserves a bonus. He deserves all that stuff. One unique thing about Brian is he walked out. I didn't know this, but I guess he told me that UFC fighters can represent any country that they want on their fight kit. Yeah.
Can you? What did he walk out?
He walked out with the South Korean fight kit, but with his name, because he wanted to wear red shorts. Yeah, tonight. And he told me, before the fights that he was going to do that. And I was like, I didn't even know that you could change your country. He's like, yeah, you could represent any country you want. He wanted to wear red shorts in the octagon. They told him for America, you can't wear red shorts. So you have to pick these. You have a list of countries that can wear red shorts.
You got blue or crazy. Man, I'm gonna pick something cool. I'm gonna be like Fijian or
how about North Korean? Wouldn't that be something?
If you just come out North Korean. That's rare. Just wait till you get like a fight in Asia and come out in like North Korean shorts.
That'd be fucked up. I don't think the UFC will allow that, but I would love to see it. You know what I mean? Nothing against North Korea. I'd love to see it. You know what I mean? Why not?
That's pretty crazy that they won't let us like have flags. Like obviously, flags have been banned. Like you can't roll your like country's flag, but you can just pick like another country. Like that's pretty wild. I'm gonna have some fun with this. I think great news to me. I'm definitely gonna have some fun with this. I think I might be Samoan in my next fight. Maybe Tongan. Maybe Fijian, you don't know.
Maybe a country that nobody really knows. Like if you picked it, people would be like confused. Like, that's a country? Like you, like one of those. Why not? Why not? Let's see. Let's see what happens in the next one.
Cook Island. I'll be Cook Island.
Yeah, Cook Islands. Captain Cook. Sean O'Malley, man. That fight. I thought he was losing the fight. Before the eye poke. Was that weird to you, that whole sequence? Like he gets his eye poked, the doctor comes in, and he says he admits that he can't see from the eye, right? Most fighters would not admit that. Most fighters would have just said, yeah, I see it. You remember Herb Dean with the fingers, and like they're not really asking you if you're all right. They're just seeing if you want to fight or not, basically. And he said, his eye's jacked. And it becomes no contest.
Yeah, like that fight was close. Like I'm not too sure that I had that as like an even round, right? Like it could have gone either way and I wouldn't have really argued either. Like I hadn't felt I hadn't felt like either fighter had really got anything established. Like no one was really dictating the fight. I felt like it was still up in the air how that one was
Mhm.
going to play out, and I was pretty attentive and watching it pretty closely. Yeah, I thought it was awkward. Like maybe like the one that stopped the fight where he glanced, um, where his fingers like glanced out, and they definitely touched the eye, but it's not like one of the ones where you see it going like knuckle deep, and you're like, oh shit, that's that's gonna get stopped. Like that's gonna be over. So I don't know. I didn't see the previous because he was saying he's done it a couple of times. Like I didn't see the previous one and whether it was like an accumulation of damage, which had Primo Munoz a bit more upset about that, or it was like an accumulation of damage because of the two eye pokes, or whether he was thought he won the first round and thought that by the fight stopping they would go to the judges' scorecards and he would be um, yeah, get a win off easy. Like it's very hard to tell. Like that's the funny thing about it. The only person that has the answer to this question is Pedro Munez, and someone's gonna ask him, and I don't think you're gonna get an honest answer. Like either he's gonna, you already know the answer that he's gonna give it. It's like, but he's like a chiseled veteran, and obviously, yeah, it comes down to him, and he's probably not gonna tell anyone the truth. So you just gotta kind of make it up in your own mind. I don't think the eye poke was that bad. He didn't take like the full 5 minutes to recover. I feel like even if he was gaming the system and thought that he might have been able to get a win out of that, the referee should definitely be open about what's going to happen and let him know that, and then see his reaction after that. I feel like it was just all a little bit rushed. Like he could have said, "All right, the fight stops now. We go to a no contest. You don't. We're not taking a point. We're not disqualifying him. This fight's going to go to a no contest." And then maybe Pedro Munez would have continued the fight. Like then maybe we have a pretty different result than the one that we actually came out with. So it's hard to tell. There's only one man in this world that knows the answer.
And also, do the fighters know like what the rules are in that situation to be able to make the right decision? Sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times, the fighters, they don't know the rules 100%. I mean, they know the rules of engagement 100%, but most of them don't know, like, oh, if this fight goes to round 2 and then I get poked in the eye and I can't continue, what happens after that? Is it a no contest? Do we go to the judges' scorecards? I think a lot of fighters don't know exactly
Yeah. It
what's
was
happening.
pretty early on that they got stopped. Like that was only like a minute and a half, not even 2 minutes into like you get 5 minutes for eye poke. It's like shouldn't we have left it another 2.5, 3 minutes before we say that one where he says like obviously you're gonna panic a fighter, like you come in there and the doctor's like, do you want to continue? Do you want to continue? Do you want to continue? And he's saying like a minute in, he's saying, man, I can't see. Like I can't see. Like he's just got that on his mind. And it's like, well, if you get another 4 minutes, you have that bit of time for some adrenaline to settle down. Like that eye opens and gets back to normal, and we can get back to the fight. It's like maybe we should have just been giving the full 5 minutes before we make that call of stopping the fight. I feel like that was just a little bit premature.
And whenever Sean O'Malley fights, there's always something, right? There's always some kind of unusual situation coming out of his fights, right? Especially, when there's some adversity that's going on, in the fight or so. But he's great at like twisting that though. He's great at twisting like this no contest into like Pedro didn't want to fight, he wanted to quit. He's using all of that to generate some headlines, and I think he's
It's a good
smart with it.
salesman.
Exactly.
He's incredibly smart with it. He's one of the absolute best at that kind of thing. Like still coming out, like making fun of it. He obviously lost, but he's coming out and saying like he's undefeated. And that in itself, by him coming out and saying that, pisses people off. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's obviously gets under some people's skin. He knows it gets under some people's skin, so he forces it down their throats, and it's quite funny to watch. And this is the same thing. Like when someone gives you something like that, where it wasn't like that serious of like a rule break or anything like that. Like it's obvious, like we all watched it, right? Like that finger just kind of glazed over the eye. It didn't go in deep to the eye or anything like that. Like it wasn't a malicious foul. And then the fight was to turn it this way. But the salesman that Sean O'Malley is, he'll push it like he won the fight. You know what I mean? He like clearly lost the fight, and he already said that he didn't lose that fight. You know what I mean? So if you give him like a one where there is a bit of smoke and there was like a possibility of him getting past it, like obviously that's the path that he's going to press it down, and it just might work. You know what I mean? Like he just might offer this, work his way up the rankings, or get a more preferable opponent. Like this just might work out the way he wants it to work out and pay off.
Yeah, he seems like he's been going back and forth with Peter Yan, and Peter Yan seems like he's ready to fight him. I think it's up to Sean to decide. Do you think he's ready for that top echelons of the bantamweight division, a former champ? Because that's a huge fight. He beats Peter Yan. He's fighting for the title.
There's only one way to find out, and that's something that Sean O'Malley definitely knows, right? Like he definitely knows, and the funny thing about it is that that's a possibility. Like you're already talking about like that. He's already built up the intrigue for that fight. Like he didn't even beat Pedro Munoz. Like that was a no contest. Like if it was anyone else other than Sean O'Malley, like they would either have to run that fight back or fight someone like on that level or further down. But Sean O'Malley gets a no contest against a guy like Pedro Munoz. He fights Peter Yan and puts himself like one way from a title. Like it's smart business. Like he's executing this game incredibly well to get a no contest over Pedro Munoz and fight Peter Yan. Like that's smart. And the same, like whether he's ready or not, it's like he's just been patient. Like he's been waiting his time. He's been just making sure that all his pieces are in the right position before he gets to it. I don't think we're going to see any huge jump in skill from Sean O'Malley over these next few fights. We're just going to see how his skill stacks up with the best in the division. And I feel like it's time. I feel like a fight. He's one fight away from a title after that, which is an incredible position for a fighter like that to be in.
Yeah, I want him to fight a contender.
He beats Peter Yan. Like he just bunny hopped Malavera, who has beaten him, right? Like he bunny hopped him off a no contest.
Yeah.
Like
that's
smart, right? Like that's smart. Like say what you want about him. Like he's an incredibly smart guy, and he's playing the game incredibly well.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. He bunny hopped the whole top 10. And he's gonna fight
off a no contest.
Off a no contest. That's
incredible.
Not many people can do that, right? Like who else is gonna be able to do something like that?
Why fight them if you can bunny hop them? Like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
And tell everybody that nobody wants to fight me at the same time, right? It's like no one signed the contract. But Peter Yan's the type of dude. If he wants to fight you, he's gonna fight you. I don't care. I don't think he cares like if you're the top 15 in the division or anything like that. So that's the next fight. I think that should be like a fight night headliner, or at least I want to see him in a 5-round fight as well.
100%. That could headline a fight night 100%.
100%, right? So me and Dan have just created the next fight night is somewhere in the world. It's going to be Sean O'Malley versus Peter Yan. And
how smart is that though? Like he doesn't have to get through the Veras, he doesn't have to get through the Corey Sandhagens, he doesn't have to get through all of these guys to get a title shot. Like it's smart, it's good business, it's a perfect situation for him to be in.
lessons to be learned all over the place. Sean O'Malley, man, I want to see him against Peter Yan. That's the fight. Now that was the main card. So the prelims, your teammate Brad went in there and lost the fight. You didn't see it?
Of course I saw it. I just say I don't see these things.
Okay. All right.
Bullshit.
But think about Jalen. I think Jalen Turner, you know what I mean? He's so talented, and I feel like he's going to be a big problem for a lot of these top 10 guys. I think he's that talented. I think he's just coming together at the same time. And
I'm sitting right here. I'm sitting right here. I'm in your way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're speaking my language now, son.
That's a good
language now. Oh, you think you're tall? I'm taller. I can jump.
All right, that's a potential, potential.
I can jump, son. I can jump real high. That knee will get up there, son.
So you like that fight? That fight is something that intrigues you. Like outside of the normal, you know what I mean? I know that.
Pisses me off. It grinds my gears. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I guess that could be a possibility.
That's not a bad fight. That's not a bad fight. If he wants to fight in October, we can fight in October. I'm down.
There you go. Simple. Straight to the point. Jim Miller. What? Jim Miller, man. Legend.
Absolute legend.
Fucking,
as he said,
do it?
As he said, the numbers, if people were to say, the numbers of UFC fights, of UFC wins that these two guys have been able to accumulate is just hands down. I take my hat off. Both of these guys are just incredible. For me, coming into it, and I feel like it's the way that the sport used to be gauged, and it used to be respect was garnered in the sport, was not who was the most undefeated and who got there the quickest, and this guy's 10-0 and he's fighting for that's not how we used to gauge success in the sport. It used to be who is beating the best guys for the longest period of time, who had been competing at the highest level for the longest period of time. Not because Fedor Emelianenko, Anderson Silva, all of these guys, it's not because they were undefeated or never been submitted or never been knocked out. It's just they had been so consistent with competing with the best guys for the longest amount of time. And that's Donald Cerrone and that's Jim Miller. These guys have been competing with at the absolute highest level. And for a guy like Jim Miller to now be on a 3-fight win streak after 500 UFC fights is just an incredible position to be in. 40, the guys had twice as, I've had a lot of UFC fights, and this guy's had twice as many UFC fights as me. That, it makes me feel young.
It does. It definitely does, man. Donald Cerrone, he retires. He's a guy that I will never forget. You can't, if you watch Donald Cerrone from the time he was in WEC to his time in the UFC, he has given so much to the sport, dude. He's kind of reached certain levels that people dream of reaching, but they never will. You know what I mean? I feel like the UFC is completely indebted to Donald Cerrone, man. He's saved a lot of fights, right? Coming in on short notice. Remember where he was taking 2-week notice fights for a year? He was just back to back, just crazy performances.
Yeah, straight.
Yeah, for a year straight. You know what I mean? What do you think? When you look back at someone like Donald Cerrone, he never won a title, and everybody points to that, right? You never won a title, but the dude has had legendary moments inside that octagon, inside that cage.
That cat has made more money than 98% of UFC champions. Let me just tell you that. So if anyone wants to hold that title as a fan, we are, at the end of the day, we're all prize fighters.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. And he skates out of the sport with one of the biggest bank accounts of all time. So that's what it comes down to. Like, we fight for a living, we fight for money, and he does it better than all of these other guys. I feel like it's a last. I feel like that's the last cowboy we're gonna see. That's the last. That's the last time we see a cowboy in the UFC. You know what I mean? A guy that just comes out there. There's no cowboys like that in pro boxing, and like it seems like that's the way that everyone's pushing the UFC or pushing MMA to these flashy undefeated records, and it comes down to whatever qualities that the fans prioritize. And at the moment, they're prioritizing the guy with the unblemished record. And if you prioritize things like that, you lose the Cowboys. Like, the Cowboys do cowboy shit, and they fight anyone, and they take on short notice, and they don't care if they're sick, they don't care if they're broken. They get in there and they compete, and that's what he did. And I feel like the sport's kind of moving past that. So I tip my hat, because it's the last cowboy in the UFC. I feel like we're not gonna see anyone else like that ever again. And so that's why it's so impressive. I've been watching Cowboys since the WC, since since he really first started fighting MMA. I've been a huge fan of Cowboy Cerrone, and I tip my hat to him. Absolute legend. And I feel like, as a fan of the sport, we're just forever indebted to what he's shown us. If you wrap up a Donald Cowboy Cerrone highlight, you're going to be watching like an hour long. They're gonna have to make a Netflix movie out of the guy. You know, he's done that much cool shit in MMA that you'd have to really take some time to sit down and appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. And if you've never seen Donald Cerrone's highlight reel, you definitely need to go back and, because there's a lot of new fans, MMA attracts every week. So hopefully they would go back, and maybe this was your first UFC event that you watched and you saw this guy named Cowboy retire. That will stick with you forever, especially with what he's done. And when you get educated about it, he's really like getting into the movies and acting. So I hope, he can represent MMA in Hollywood, get into a lot of movies and become a huge star. Nothing but the best for Cowboy, man. He deserves everything. He's done things that most people wouldn't even think about doing. Another, one guy, Donald Cerrone, he retires. And then the fight before that was, like one of the burgeoning welterweights right now, Ian Gary. He took on Gabe Green. I thought it was a really good fight. I thought Ian Gary performed really well, probably his best performance so far. What do you think of him? What kind of vibes do you get off Ian Gary?
Oh, like, in terms of skill, like, that was an absolute masterclass. Like, he came out there, like, from the first round, it was kind of set in stone, like, how that thing was really going to play out. And he's looked pretty impressive all of his fights. He's a very well-rounded fighter, and he's just getting that experience up. Like, he's getting his octagon time up, and he looked very impressive. He obviously doesn't have the silver tongue, which he tries to say he does. Like, that's like, when he actually comes out there and he says, like, I'm the next big superstar. It's like, you need the chat to kind of back that sort of stuff up. So whether he goes away and he like develops like a Sean O'Malley tongue or a Conor McGregor tongue, but he's doing very well for himself. He's copying the playbook of his countryman Conor McGregor, and that'll get him incredibly far, by copying that same playbook and getting the results that he's been getting inside the octagon. Like, he's just destined for bigger and better things.
Dan, I'm going to play this for you, man. I don't know if it's real or it's staged, but I just wanted to get your reaction to this, man. Let me play it. Let me share it with you. What is going on with this world? Let's see. Oh, here we go. Right here. Is that it? Oh, shit. Well, I guess I'm not going to share it. But there's a video right now on Twitter of Nate Diaz slapping somebody backstage. It looked like one of the guys from some guy that was interviewing him. from like I think it says Full Send. You know those Full Send guys, the guys that like YouTubers that go
That's a
around.
setup, bro.
You think
That's a
it's all set
setup.
up? It's a setup.
The full Dana White's guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Fuck off, like, fuck off.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll have to watch it. I'll have to watch it. I'll tweet my honest response to how that all plays out. But Nate Diaz is a big time slapper. That guy gets out there and like legit smacks the shit out of people. Like he's got, who was it? Someone was telling me about it. Like they were there. I'm trying to think. It was like recent too. Someone was telling me the story. It was when Michael Johnson just like last fall.
Yeah.
And it was like Michael Johnson was like coming out of a bathroom and Nate Diaz like bumped into him and just went smack, like just smacked him one across the chops, like not like a word was spoken. You know what I mean?
What?
And just like smacked him a big one. So it's like he is a big time smacker. I feel like a slap is like far more disrespectful than like
Yeah.
like a smack is like you ain't even worth closing my fist for, brother. Like just pop him off in the mouth. So I don't know. I have to watch it.
Yeah. Oh, was Shantyman Jozark. Phenomenal name. Dude disrespected Maximoff allegedly. All right. Well, I guess the dude that interviewing him disrespected his teammate Nick Maximoff. So, Nick. One thing I could respect about like Nick Diaz, the Diaz brothers and their crew is that they are fucking loyal to each other. You know what I mean? Like they are down for each other. They will fight you at the UFC for each other. I love that. I love that they have that loyalty for each other. But then there's stupidity at the same time, right? Don't be stupid and do things that you're not supposed to do and, maybe get arrested. Just my advice for Diaz, because Diaz is not a kid. I think people still think Diaz is like 25 years old or 22 years old. I think they think that in their mind, but Diaz is damn near 40. He's not a young guy.
Down, eh? He's
Yeah.
not slowing down.
No, you don't care. Like with Cerrone and Jessica, she also retired as well tonight. I like it that they're walking away when they want to walk away. You know what I mean? Jessica and Cowboy Cerrone. What do you think about the retirements that are going on? Joanna, she retired a couple weeks ago in Singapore. Why do you think we're having this a little bit more?
I feel like Cowboys was like a little more forced. Like it had the UFC like uppers. Like Dana White even came out and said it, like that Joe Lozon Cowboys Cerrone fight was like a loser leaves town. So obviously, like Cowboys come out and said he wanted to crack 50 fights. Like he wanted to make it to 50 fights. Like he has to call it a day on 49. I feel like his hand was like a little more forced. He's come out and said that he doesn't love it anymore, which is like him just being open and honest about it. But as I think I said last week, like it's just different for women and it's different for like just a guy like coming out and saying like she hasn't been able to travel the world and see the world and because she's just been locked in the gym. Like that's like the balance of lifestyle and training, which a lot of fans like don't see. Like some of these guys can like squeeze their dream so tight that they suffocate it, that they take all the fun out of it. They stop enjoying it. They stop loving it as much as they did when they were young. So like that's for me is like a more experienced guy is to keep it fun, like keep enjoying yourself. Like if this is not something that you want to do, then you've as soon as it's not something you enjoy doing, you've put an end date on it. Because it doesn't make you happy. Like for me, that was it. Like going back, stepping away and just finding the love of the sport again, finding the enjoyment, just enjoying being in the gym, which just as you get older just becomes like terrible, right? Because you've just been stuck there for 10 years, 15 years. But to still find the fun in it, to still find the passion and the love of it, is like a real secret to like longevity in the sport. But again, like with this guy, like it's different, right? Like their mothers, like they want to go in and have kids, which men can pop kids out willy-nilly and keep fighting through the UFC. That's something that a woman is going to have to take 1 or 2 years off if they have a baby. It's going to take at least a year and a half, 2 years away from the octagon, and that's like a huge chunk of your career. For a man, that's an ACL tear or knee surgery or shoulder surgery to take that amount of time away. So it's just more difficult for the females, but for people in general, it's just keep the fun of it. Keep reminding yourself that you love it, and keep the passion and the lifestyle of the sport.
Yeah, and it's MMA is a sport where training is just grueling. So I could see how certain fighters would fall out of love with just the grind of it. You know what I mean? Just getting up and having to face people, in the training room that's trying to kill you, and you're trying to kill them. And sometimes that becomes less fun for certain people.
Yeah,
right?
it's funny, like I always have to fall back to like the one thing that I've actually like absolutely never lost is like head and shoulders over any aspect of fighting, like training is I love the fighting part, like all of the fighting parts. So it's just like we're inspiring, like when you just have a fight with someone, like that is the part which I have absolutely loved, and like that's an aspect of fighting which I've trained. Like all of the other stuff I do, because if you don't do the other stuff, then you don't win the fighting part. Like if you're not like really fit, then you don't win the fighting part. If you're not like have good grappling or good wrestling or good technique in your striking, like then you're at the end of the day you're gonna lose the fighting part. So for me, it comes down to just how do I win the fighting part, because that's the part which I absolutely relish and I absolutely love.
Yeah, we love it, man. And what else did happen today? Oh, Jessica Rose Clark. Man, did you see the arm? Man, that arm bent.
That dislocate or that broke? Like that dislocate?
I think
That
it's
popped out.
dislocated. Yeah, it just popped out
What was
because
that kid like? Because Paul Craig popped. Whose arm did he pop
Jamal
out of
Hill.
place? Jamal Hills. He popped that out, and then Jamal fought before Paul Craig fought again. Like
Yeah.
that was wild, man. I thought that was like snap. So like obviously you can come back. Like you're just extending some ligaments or popping like your elbow out of place. Like that's not. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. That looked terrible though.
Yeah, it did. It did look terrible, and you hate to see that happen, but seems like she's all right. I saw a little video that she posted after the
That's good.
fight. She's got to move on, man. She's still working. She's still climbing. She's still building. So it's not like she's near retirement or something like that. Like someone like a Jessica Ai or Donald Cerrone. Macy Barber. Have you seen much of her in the
Yeah,
past?
actually, yeah, big time. I actually seen her when was she even a pro? I don't even think she'd had a pro fight when she was training out there in Team Elevation. And then
Oh, okay.
ever since then, I've like, obviously, because I'd seen her in real life, I'd like kept my eye on her. Yeah, she was training out at Team Elevation, and like she was training at Bang Muay Thai there with Dwayne Ludwig, and she was like moving around there. And then ever since then, I've kind of had my eye on her. She went Jackson Wink and all these other places, and then she found her home there at Team Alpha Male, which has been pretty cool to watch her develop. And yeah, she's just a young, hungry, developing fighter. Like she did well against Jessica Ai. Like she stayed in it. That was a very close fight. Like it could have gone either way. I don't feel like it's a fight that maybe Jessica Ai should have retired off of just because of how competitive it was with one of like the top fighters. It just must have been something that was on Jessica's mind for a very long period of time before she made the decision like that. But yeah, again, Macy, like every time she goes out there, she's always getting better. She's had a taste of world champions. She's had a taste of the higher echelon of the division. I think she's still got some ways to go, but she's definitely got the right attitude to be successful over a long period of time.
Were people talking about her even back then? Like she's one of the ones to watch out for?
Oh, everyone's the one to watch out for. Like when you get out there to like these top gyms, you know what I mean? Like this is years ago. Corey Sandhagen was, I think, 2-0 as a
Mhm.
professional. Like ways off getting in the UFC, and people were talking about him as like the next big thing. Like Macy, as a female fighter, obviously, like people talking about. Even I would hear her speak, and she was just held confident. Like she was
Mhm.
as confident as she is now in interviews. Like all the way back then when she would speak to you, she's just going on, I'm gonna be the world champion. And I remember her dad like pushing her like quite hard. So it's, yeah, it's cool to see someone like not lose that. Like that's like the coolest thing for me as a fighter. Like that's like the true sign that someone's like in this for the long haul. Because at the end of the day, if you want to be successful in this game, like you have to be in this for the long haul. Like not all of these stories, or very few of these stories, are fairy tales. You know what I mean? Like very few of these play out perfectly. And hers is not. Like she came in with a lot of hype, didn't play out perfectly, but she's been able to stay in it, stay with it, back herself through those tough spots, and she's still winning fights and moving her way up the rankings, which to me means that she's like proven. She's not one of these young undefeated hype trains. She's got a lot of hype behind her, but it's proven she's been able to stick with it and persevere through some tough times.
Yeah, definitely. Her story's just starting, so we're gonna see her for many, many years in that UFC octagon. Everybody's in that division is just like they need to chase after Valentina. We'll see who can dethrone Valentina. That's what I'm interested in. And Macy, she might be. You know what I mean? I'm not saying now, but eventually,
Mm,
maybe she might be.
mm.
Next week, let's talk about next week, man. A big lightweight main event coming up. You got RDA versus Rafael Fiziev or Fiziev or whatever the hell. You know what I mean? Like I don't understand like these different pronunciations, but I asked Rafael how you say your name. And I said, "Is it Fiziev?" And he's like, "Yeah." I think Rafael is just like, "Yeah, whatever you say." Like that's
Yeah,
how you say it. He
if
don't care.
Zimby be like, yeah, whatever.
Now with this fight, it was supposed to happen earlier this year. Got canceled. Rafa had um, COVID. Yeah, when he landed in Vegas, he contracted COVID, and then the fight was canceled. Now with this fight, I don't really recollect like us talking about this fight. I think we did, but what do you see in this fight now with RDA and it's he had that fight with Moicano where he just beat the shit out of Moicano for 5 rounds. Do you see RDA wrestling in this fight?
Yep, yep. But RDA wrestles in a lot of fights. Like
Mhm.
he's just he's just very well rounded. Like Rafael, skill for skill is one of the best guys in the division. Like that's hands down. Like he's big for the weight class. He wrestles very well. He's strong in all positions. Like he's strong against the cage. He's got a very good top game, and then his striking is pretty tight and pretty defensive. Um, for me, this is like a huge test to Huffer. Like this is a massive test for him. This is a real step up in competition. Obviously, he fought Brad, and that was his last fight, correct? Like when he um, beat Brad, but that was like two guys in the same position, like two undefeated or not undefeated, but like two guys on like a good streak in the UFC, doing very well, like two young prospects. And then that was like a fight to see who progresses forwards. This is like the first time we've seen Fiziev fight a guy who's just way more experienced than him, way more well-rounded, way more like a proven veteran. So it's just going to be interesting for me how it plays out. For me, um, yeah, it's like whether Huffer like pressures in and jams him against the cage. Like for this one, we're gonna see. I don't think we're gonna see like Huffer being able to walk Dos Anjos down. Like we've been able to see him walk a lot of the times. Usually he's like pressuring, like he pressures forwards, right, and the other guy has to back off and move. Um, Dos Anjos is not a guy you can really bully around the octagon. Like he's a big unit. Like he stands his ground. He's very hard to hit with a clean shot. He's obviously doesn't throw like very wide or very wild. He's very like just very strong and presses forward. So I think we're going to see how the Fiziev moves going backwards, and whether he's got that footwork and whether he's got that takedown defense to really compete with the top 10 in the division. So I feel like I see this as just a huge test for Fiziev.
And also, you know, there's always that question mark about his cardio. And when you're facing a guy that can grapple, that can wrestle, their cardio will be tested. You know, I think that's another thing that people should look at as well. You know, can he hang with that pace of RDA? You know, I mean, RDA is a former champion. This is going to be a massive victory if he pulls off a victory against RDA. You know what I mean? I feel like Fiziev has way more to gain than RDA does, because it seems like the UFC is kind of ready to push Fiziev rather than RDA, who's been around for a long time. You know what I mean? If he wins, of course, he could, you know, get into a title shot position, but it's almost like they want the new blood. You know, they need the new blood. And this is a massive test. What do you think about the level of wrestling from Fiziev? You know what I mean? Like, just from observing him over the couple of years.
Well, he works with one of the best wrestling coaches in the world, Frankie Hickman. So I see a lot of similarities. Like, I know he's well trained, and I know that is there. Like, from speaking with Frank, like that those wrestling chops are there. We haven't seen a lot of them in the UFC just because he is so good at defending takedowns. Like, I think Brad got him down once, and that was like the first time anyone had got him down in the UFC. Like, this fight, we're gonna see whether how his wrestling really stacks up with the better guys, because I feel like Huffer's gonna have to come out. I mean, Dos Anjos is really gonna have to come out, and he's gonna have to wrestle. Like, going forwards to back Fiziev up, he's really going to have to level change. He's going to have to grab him. He's going to have to force him against the cage and look to get him down, or else going forward, you're just a moving punching bag, essentially, if you can't stop him against the cage and get him down.
What I see in this fight is RDA. What's he going to do is he's going to strike with Fiziev. He's not, you know, afraid to strike with him, you know what I mean? Because he has good striking himself, but I feel like he's going to use that striking to just dip under and drag Fiziev to the ground and just kind of like rinse and repeat that until he's able to get a submission, or maybe even get a TKO finish on the ground. I think that's what we're going to see from RDA. This is my view on his side. Fiziev, we already kind of know what he's going to do. It's, can you stop him from doing it? You know, we're at that 100%. Point, I think, with Fiziev. So I don't think we're going to see anything like brand new from Fiziev. I just think he's been, you know, developing those skills over the years. And like you said, he has one of the best wrestling coaches in Frank Hickman, right? So Frank, he was 2 for 2 tonight, right in the corner. Very proud of him.
He sure was. Good work, Frankie.
Good work, Frank.
And
I'm waiting.
You're earning yourself some beers.
So what's the New Zealand beer? What is like the main beers for New Zealand out there?
There's lots.
There's a lot. Okay. I would think. Spades.
Tui. Lion Red. Steinlager. Heineken. Oh no, there's Heineken's not New Zealand beer. Yeah. There's lots of beers. We're big beer drinkers down here.
Yeah, I'm more of a beer guy myself. You know, I'd rather
Man, I can't believe I've got to this stage of the show. I'm 12 beers deep. I don't even
12 beers deep.
Yeah, we're going good. Hey, you wouldn't even have picked that, right?
Yeah.
Told you.
West Side Jiu-Jitsu? Where's that at?
It's at my gym. It's my training partner, Gareth Ely. I've been training with him for over a decade, and he's the black belt and the head coach, BJJ coach at my gym.
Nice.
West Side.
Also, next week we got Jimmy Malarkey returning against Michael Johnson. We just started talking about Michael Johnson.
Sheesh.
That's a good fight, right?
Sheesh. That's a big step up in competition for Jamie. Like, man, if he can get past a guy like Michael Johnson. Sheesh. Obviously backing him because he's from my part of the world and we're backing him.
Yeah.
That's a tough fight. I tip my hat to him for taking that fight. That's a tough fight. I'm very interested to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, it's gonna be fireworks. I think that fight is, it's top contender for fight of the night for next week. Michael Johnson, where do you know what he brings? Jamie Malarkey, the hooligan. The dude is just ready to go in there and fight you no matter which way you want. So it's gonna be fun to watch that one. Next week, next week's a pretty decent card. You know, you got a couple good matchups. Cynthia Calvillo's fighting Nina Nunez. That's a pretty big fight for the flyweight division. Antonina Shevchenko is going to fight next week as well. And tune in next week. And we'll be back next week. Maybe.
We'll be talking.
Maybe. We'll be talking about you.
Maybe.
Maybe. You never know you never know what can happen. You know what I mean? I'm not going to guarantee next week because we never know what's going to happen in the week. So,
I might have 20 beers and then the show's off. I have 12. I think 12. I reckon 15, and then shows turn into shit. Because once I go over 15 beers, that's like, then I'm drinking. You know what I mean?
I'm drinking.
I go like warming up, like 12, and then I'm like, might go home, do my show, and have dinner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go home, do my show, shoot the shit with the bro, and then I'm gonna have dinner. 15, now I'm drinking. Now for the next 24 hours, we're doing this.
Now you're dedicated, right? Now
I'm in. I'm too fine to pull myself out.
All in. Well, I'm looking forward to that day. Anyways, Dan, it's good catching up, and let's meet next week. Maybe.